Hello, I'm Philip Stoughton. I am at Productronica 2023 and I'm joined by Xaver from Zollner and Marc from KATEK. Thank you for joining me. I feel like I have a lot of the German industry to talk to right now. What I wanted to discuss was a lot of people have talked over the last year or so about a manufacturing renaissance in Europe, maybe some reshoring, maybe less business going overseas and some growth as a result of that, which I think is really exciting. My concern, both here and in other geographies, is that might be stalled by a lack of talent. Do you see talent as being a real constraint to growth, or is it something that maybe we're exaggerating the concern for? Let's start with you, Marc. How do you see the talent demand at the moment?
I think, yes, talent, a lack of certain talents or a lack of employees at all, partially, is a really constraint at the moment. So we really need to think about how we can come over it, how we get more skilled people, which we need for what, and how we can get more output with less people. And that does not mean that we will release anybody. It's meaning about to get the growth done at all, okay?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting scenario, and we often think of automation as displacing jobs, but actually it's all about collaborating and supporting those jobs. How do you see it from Zollner's point of view in terms of where you need to recruit and build up talent?
Well, and I think I can speak for all. We in the EMS industry have a very broad range of talents that we need. Beside the production environment, I think there is a huge need in point of view of talents for AI technology, for everything in automation. And I think the need that we see for the future is much more sophisticated and much more broad as we had in the past. And I think what is very important is what do we sell to those talents? Because if there are talents available, everybody is looking into OEM industry or is looking into the tech industry. So the very visible industries, and that's probably a challenge that we see as EMS providers. But what we recognized in the last years, it's not only about the positions that are available. It's about the challenges and the projects that the people are going to have. And this is how we try to stay attractive for young talents and additional talents from areas that we didn't touch from a technological point of view in the past.
So do you think it's about making the jobs, one, more interesting, but secondly, more appealing? And if you do make them more appealing, how do you communicate that to young people that are maybe looking for their first job, maybe qualifying with a degree in engineering?
Yeah, let's say to the first point, how do I make it more interesting? Okay, I think really what Xaver said, people who like to think in software, which is more and more coming, digitalization of production, KI, AI, now things, systems, more educated MES systems on. So we have a lot more software, a lot more thinking in that terms. Now, how do I convince somebody that my job is at our side is interesting than a software job is? It's because you really get to physics. It's really about the connection between what you do in such a software thing and you get a real output. You see it working, you see something happening. At the end, we have something in hand. So we have to emphasize more on this. We have to make more out of this connection because that's something which differentiates us. And that we have to bring to people before they look for the job. Let's say we have to go to universities. We have to make clear while they are studying that this is an opportunity or an option. They might not have thought about it because we as electronics industry are not, let's say, present enough compared to an OEM or something like this. So we have to bring it at that point to the young talents. And then when they go for the first job, they think about applying in the EMS industry, wherever, okay? And I don't mind, okay?
No, it's interesting, and it's like, how do we let them know that the opportunity isn't to work on a production line? The opportunity is to make something that's going into space, or make something that's completely changing the world of e-mobility, or something like that. So that's really challenging. You talked a bit about academia and university outreach. That's really important. At Zollner, do you have a strategy where you're actually involved with universities to recruit?
So especially in our region where we are located, we have a lot of universities around us that we support, where we also not only support but also make bachelor theses and master theses for students to bring them in on the one hand, and on the other hand, when we look globally, we always look strategically into locations where we have a good university infrastructure around it. So for example, Costa Rica was especially one of our locations where we said they have very good universities down in San Jose, which are really concentrated about electronics, so everything that we need to always have this proximity to universities, same like in China, in Taichung. So we even started apprenticeships in China to get young talents in. So a very typical German and European thing that are done that we used to do in China with the Chamber of Commerce, and this was very successful as well. So you have to look very broad in all the aspects, and I think that what Marc mentioned, you have to show the attractiveness of our industry. Because I think, so I always keep to say there is the EMS industry is the most interesting industry in the world, because it's not only automotive or it's not only telecommunication. You have the few in every branch. If you want to be in medical, you can do medical in EMS. If you want to do aerospace, you can do aerospace, and there are very few other branches that gives the ability like in the EMS industry.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of segments, and you can be making something different every single week, which I think is really interesting. When you look at attracting talent, are we missing any of the talent pool? Are we wasting opportunity because we're perhaps not as diverse as we should be, or perhaps we're not thinking of all of the age groups? Actually, people are living much longer, so maybe they should retire later, or maybe there are opportunities there. Are we really exploiting the entire talent pool?
Today, not yet. Okay, for sure not. Actually, let's say on the shop floor level or on the in that levels, I have something like 50% women. When I look to the management level, it's a few. Okay, and when I try to recruit for that level, I get male a lot, because there's not a real big pool of female yet. So we have to be active to get female, let's say, out of that shop floor level. We have a lot really to that higher levels, so we have to make career opportunities, we have to make passes, talent development passes for such, okay? And at the same time, yes, and that we start already doing, or we have already partially done, is keeping people a little bit longer before they retire, maybe part-time, maybe full-time, mostly part-time, so that they can still bring in the experience on a certain points. And then we have to make, and that's why we also are engaged in diversity organizations and so on, we have to make clear that this is not a male industry, okay? So we have to also marketing and promote that we can be diverse. Not yet, but if she, him, or whoever comes to us, we can be.
Yeah. No, I think that's really interesting. And when I look at recruiting more females into this environment, the key is for them to see role models, to see people that are in jobs that they perhaps want to be in. That's something that you've got to work really hard at, Xaver. You've really got to push the women that you do have to the fore. You've got to promote the women that are already in the organisation, and that will increase the available talent pool for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think what's important for us is also to have this kickstarts, let's call it this way, to show the attractiveness of our industry and all the different disciplines. So, like the head of innovation in our headquarters is a woman, and the ideas that are coming from this area, these are things. This is fantastic, and I think these are things that we have to support in all various ways of the industry. Not only the classical things like marketing and so on, but also in the technical areas. I think that's very, very important, and this is the long term that we have to fulfill, not only in Europe, also on a global base, because the lack of talent is not only a European topic. So we see the challenges on a global base, and this is what we have to really dig deep into.
Yeah, and I think when you think about it, there's a real structural inequity because the consumers are 50% female. It's as simple as that. So, you need to be designing products for the consumer market, and you need to be thinking in the way they think. So I think it's important to have that. Last thing I just wanted to touch on was we talked a bit about automation and the role of automation in mitigating talent shortages. I think we can clearly see that there are paths there. What I'm curious about is, do you think there's enough of an understanding of that from your vendors, from your equipment suppliers, from your software suppliers, that they need to be considering digital transformation as a way to allow you to grow without perhaps increasing your headcount quite so much?
You mean from our suppliers or from the customer, from our vendors? Yeah, I think they see it, okay. But I think today they see it more as an opportunity to sell something, okay. To sell another equipment, another stuff, okay. To do it, it's less thinking in helping us to really bring that to a different level, okay. And so when, let's say, part suppliers don't see that a lot, okay, because it's not so much they can do in that way, okay. From the customer side, we see it, yes, but from them, we see it today too much from a cost perspective and not enough from a quality and capacity perspective in this way. But there are good signs on both sides. And I think we can bring them together. So it's a little bit our role to bring the two worlds together as so often.
Yeah, well, you're the center of the ecosystem. You've got to inform all parts, but actually getting those strategic supplier relationships and getting them to understand what you need to develop your business is absolutely key.
Yeah. So I think from the supply base, there is a huge change as well. Important is not only to think into production technology, there is so many potential in automation in all the other areas. It's just think about marketing, how generative AI revolutionized marketing within the last 12 months, so to say. So there is a huge opportunity in, and all the other processes that go into all the administration topics, there is also a huge potential in. And I think we have to consider the whole supply chain, not only from a supplier perspective, but also going into the customer side, because automation will be a key to be able to grow, sustain with the market as we do at the moment with all the electrification that is going on in all different branches.
Building a success.
Maybe if I may add, okay, which comes to my mind, let's say, I see, and I think you see it too, new suppliers coming up, okay, trying to tackle exactly that holistic view and then on, and that drives also the existing suppliers to think about it, okay. So we see new guys coming, startups, partially established companies, but taking that as a chance to get in. Okay?
Yeah, and I think the more you invite them in and the more you share and encourage that, the better you'll do. I'm a bit worried that there's going to be a generative AI sitting here interviewing you in 2 years, but we'll try to figure out a way that doesn't happen, and hopefully it won't be generative AI answering. In the meantime, thanks so much for your time. Always a pleasure to chat to you. Always a pleasure to get an overview on the industry. Thank you.